Hey there, Megaton Stammer here. Chances are if you're watching this video, you've already watched the mini documentary that I made on Poison about a month ago. In which case, thank you for watching that, and to everyone who helped spread the word about it and gave comments and critiques and everything in between. You guys are awesome. I don't really know how else to say thank you. I kind of exhausted ways to show gratitude in the comments, so I'll just leave it at thank you very much. About the mini documentary, as everyone else has been calling it, I didn't go out to call it that way, but that's what everyone else chose to address it as, so hey, I might as well too. This is basically just to follow up on that and address a few common questions that I've gotten about it and point out some errors that I made in the video, because there were a pretty decent amount of them. So here we go. I don't want to waste too much time getting into this because I got a lot of crap to talk about. Let's get going. I messed up at the very beginning and I feel so dumb. I said that the Super Nintendo version of Final Fight came out in Japan in 1989. That is completely wrong. I'm an idiot. It came out in 1990, and the reason that is because the Super Nintendo itself wasn't even out in 1989 in Japan. How could Final Fight come out for the Super Nintendo at that point when the console's not even out itself? So that was dumb. I annotated that in the video after a guy on Shoryuken pointed it out. If you didn't catch that, or if your annotations weren't working, I fixed that. Sorry, I'm dumb. I tried to use sources that were other than wikis in this video, which worked to my disadvantage in this case, because the wiki had the right information, but I was trying to steer clear of that as much as I could. Next on the list is Poison and Roxy had appeared in the West in the arcade version of Final Fight prior to the Sega CD release. When I said it in the video, it sounded like I meant the first time they showed up was on the Sega CD version. That's not true. When the arcade version came out, that was an international release, so it did show up in America and Japan and everywhere in between. So, sorry that I didn't bring that up in the video. I didn't really state myself very well at that part, so that's totally on me. Next is Poison and Roxy were actually referred to as new halves again in the Japanese guidebook for Final Fight, which is different than the manuals. I think it was a separately released guidebook for the game, which is funny because, you know, it's Final Fight. I kind of thought all you need to do is walk to the right and punch. I didn't know you needed a guide for that, but hey, whatever. So in in that piece of literature as well, they were referred to as new halves, and that was a Japanese released book, so there you go. Next on the list is, at that point in the video where I was talking about Poison's transition from being in Final Fight to being in Street Fighter, and I talked about all the games she showed up in, I left out that she was in Capcom Fighting All-Stars, but that's only because that game got canceled, so there wasn't really a whole lot of point in bringing it up, and not to mention, it just would have made the video longer, and it really didn't need to be longer than it was, since it didn't really add much to the information. But hey, now you know she was going to be in another game, but it got canceled. Bummer, I know. Oh, wait a second. Next is, Poison appeared in SNK vs. Capcom SVC Chaos. I'm pretty sure I used a screenshot of that in the video, but I don't think I mentioned it, so sorry about that, but she did show up. And from what I've heard, there was a reference to her sex in that as well, but off the top of my head, I can't remember what it was. So if I can find what I'm thinking of, I'll show it in the video, but if not, then oopsie, I got nothing. So that's just something that I kind of am gotten in the back of my mind, like there's something I should be talking about there, but I've completely forgotten now. Next on the list is, when I showed the websites for Street Fighter Cross Tekken and the descriptions where it said, oh, Poison may look like a finely curved woman, but her looks can be deceiving, I forgot to mention that was on both the United States and Japan versions of the website, which is interesting because at that time, Ono's explanation of her being different depending on region was still in effect. So that's an interesting thing to note, that even in the American website and the Japanese website, it said the same thing, implying her being transsexual. So just a little interesting note there. Next is something I left out in the credits, which was a piece of music that I used, which was the jingle that you heard when I showed the definition of new half towards the beginning of the video. That was the Continue On track from Final Fight Double Impact, so in case you were wondering, that's what that was. Sorry I left that out. Next on the list is something really interesting that I actually got pointed out to me after I released the video. Card Fighters DS is a Capcom game that involves collecting cards, as it may sound, and battling them. And on said cards are characters from Street Fighter. And the thing about that was the Poison and Hugo cards that you could get in that game had interesting dialogue in them. And on Poison's, it just comes right out at the beginning of her description on her card and says, "She's a man, baby," like in Austin Powers. And I'm like, wow, good job, Capcom. Way to be subtle about it. So that I got a laugh out of that. And then also pretty funny was in Hugo's description towards the end of that, it says something to the effect of Poison is a harsh manager woman, something like that. But basically, when it says woman when referring to Poison, the MAN at the end of woman is all in caps. So, you know, Capcom, again, being very subtle and so politically correct. I got a laugh out of it, but, you know, not everyone would, I'm sure. So, that's that. Really silly stuff there. That's all I have as far as stuff that I left out and errors in the video, although I'm sure there are more that I've forgotten or weren't pointed out to me. So, for now, that's all I have on that subject. If anything else that I can think of is mentioned to me, I'll leave an annotation at the end of the video highlighting what that is if you're so inclined to go and look at my screw-ups even more. Next thing I have on the list of things here is talking about a lot of comments that I got on the video, where a lot of repeated questions and comments got brought up. So first on that list is the win quotes against Poison have been changed in Street Fighter Cross Tekken. Yeah, I know that. I think I might have read about that like right after the video got released. Either way though, I left that out of the video, so sorry about that. Apparently, a transgender rights group got a hold of Capcom and said that what they had written in the win quotes were offensive and demeaning, which, you know, I'm sure to certain people who are really sensitive about the subject, yeah, it would be kind of uncomfortable. My personal view on it is I myself like to have a bit of levity about whatever it is I'm talking about, you know, within reason. So I don't really take it that seriously, and I find it pretty easy to poke fun at just about anything. It doesn't really bug me, but again, you know, I'm not transgendered, so what do I know about that? I wouldn't have the, you know, mental implications and, you know, the psyche that would be affected by that. So, you know, who am I to talk? And on that subject of being all politically correct and sensitive, is my choice of words in the video was poor at times. Excuse me. Particularly when I screwed up in saying gender as opposed to sex, because gender, if I understand correctly, is what you say when you're referring to someone's mental and emotional state of who they are, whether they're male or female, and then sex is, you know, what they are physically. So, sorry about that if I screwed that up. I'm pretty sure I did at least once or twice in the video. And on a similar note, I also, towards the end of the video, when I was talking about, you know, the argument of Poison being transgendered as opposed to 100% female, that choice of words, using 100% female, I only use that because that's how most of the people who said the whole claim of, oh, you know, Capcom changed her to be 100% female in Comic-Con, so on and so forth. That's why I kept using that particular phrase. I did not mean to imply that any transsexual women are anything less than female. That was definitely not my intention. Sorry, my throat is dry. So, if anyone took offense to that, again, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Anything I say that's, you know, inaccurate is a result of me not being, you know, a guru on the subject, so sorry about that. Next on the list is Poison's body. A lot of people were pointing out, oh, Poison can't possibly be a man because men just aren't born with that kind of body, and her bone structure is clearly that of a female. She's got, you know, wide childbearing hips, so, you know, a man can't have that. And to that I say, it's a video game. The characters kind of get designed with fantasy and unrealistic visions in mind, so I don't really buy that explanation. I get where people are coming from when they say that, but at the same time, you know, it's like I said, the video game characters, I mean, most of them aren't really designed with realism in mind, particularly in Capcom's games. They're very fantastic and crazy and all kinds of stuff, so I don't know, just doesn't really hold up for me. Next thing on the list is Nintendo being the actual source of censorship in the US version of Final Fight for the Super Nintendo. A lot of people think that, oh, Capcom censored it, and it was Capcom's decision, where it was the choice of removing them from the Super Nintendo version in the West was actually almost assuredly Nintendo's doing, because, you think back to what their stance was on trying to be like a family-friendly company, that would be in their best interest to not have controversial characters in the game like that, so it kind of makes sense. Which is why when people bring up, oh, and Streets of Rage, a game released around the same time, they didn't censor anything and they didn't remove their female enemies. Well, yeah, I mean, that's a series owned by Sega, and Sega's thing back then was being like, the cool system, Genesis does what Nintendo don't, all that stuff. So that was kind of their whole spiel. So, yeah, I don't know what else to tell you on that. It's just a difference of company standpoints at the time. Going back to the thing where I'm not intending to offend anyone, I made a lot of jokes and puns about transsexualism and transgender people and poison and all that good stuff. And I didn't do that to be offensive, and I still think taking offense to it is a little too sensitive. Again, maybe I'm just, some ignorant guy who doesn't know anything about the subject, but I didn't mean to say anything that was to be considered offensive. It was mostly just to make sure that the video had just a way to keep things light and not from getting too serious and, preachy, although I think I ended up doing that by the end of the video, too. Yeah, I'm sorry if I offended anyone with my possibly poor taste in humor. Not my intention. Last thing that I wanted to talk about as far as comments and things in the video specifically is I didn't bring up a book, actually 2 books that were released, and one of which is, I think, called All About Capcom Head-to-Head Fighting Games, and that was released in 2000, and I think also in 2000 there was a book that was released called Capcom Early Design Works. And both of these books apparently have sections in them that refer to Final Fight, and specifically Poison. And from what I hear, the books actually talk about the explanation of Poison being changed for the American release. Being changed from a female to a transvestite or transgender or whatever the story goes at that point. So those books say that. From what I hear, that's the part, is that I can't find solid translations of these books online, and while they're available to be bought, they're like $50. I'm not about to go and spend $100 to go and confirm this and then bring it to someone who can speak Japanese fluently. I'd call me lazy. I'm just not going to do that. But if I could find translations online, which maybe I'm just not looking hard enough, then I'd show them to you. But as far as I can tell, there aren't any translations, so I can't confirm that. And also, equally of value as far as that's concerned is these books were released like a decade after Final Fight, and while I'm sure the people writing the book were very familiar with Capcom's history to be able to actually write books about it, the whole Poison thing was kind of obscure, and in the way that that story is told, no matter which, story you tell, it involves a lot of variables in that a lot of the things that are supposed to have happened were very behind closed doors in small development groups and during the process of creating the game itself. So that kind of stuff wasn't really documented really well back then, so I can't really put a lot of faith in a book that talks about something that happened a decade ago in a process of gaming that really wasn't dialed in to be well recorded at that time. So those books don't really feel like really good sources of information at this time for me, so that's why I chose to left them out the video. If you want to pursue looking at them, be my guest. If I can find any good information on it, I'll leave an annotation at the end of this video. And furthermore, I'll leave annotations on anything that I leave out of this where I think it's worth mentioning and it has some information that's, good to look into. But that's all that I have as far as the video is concerned. But by far the most repeated question that I got was people asking that I make more and wanting me to make more mini documentary series, whatever you call it, of a similar nature to this. And to that I say it's really flattering that you want to see more, and I'm glad that you enjoyed the video so much. But I can't really think of a subject that has the similar amount of content and length of time that the subject's been around for that would be like specifically about a character or a theme or a game, that has as much controversy and interest flowing around it like Poison did. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. I'm not really getting many ideas here, and actually more importantly than that is this video took a long time to make, and it took a lot of work, and while it was fun to make it, it's not something that I'm eager to go out and say, yeah, let's dedicate another 3 months worth of time, you know, researching and writing and recording and editing and all that stuff. You know, I'm not really eager to go and do that all over again, especially if I can't find another subject that's really fascinating to me. So again, that's kind of just a point that I'm at where I'm not sure about it. So to anyone who wants to see more, I'm not throwing it out, you know, as not going to happen, but it's not really in my plans right now. So I'm sorry about that. If you're looking to see anything particularly soon, that's definitely not going to happen because of the amount of time that it takes to make a video like that for me and my lack of, you know, speedy editing skills. So I'm sorry about that. That's really all I have to say on the subject. If you made it through these full almost 20 minutes. God, this is almost as long as the actual video. Oh my god. Okay, well, that's the end of this video. Jeez. Now all that's going to be left is the annotations, and thanks for watching or listening. I hope you found some interest. If you were interested enough to watch through this entire thing, then hey, thanks for that. If not, then I get it, because you know what? I've been rambling. And it's just because I got so many people in this in response to the video that I was just blown away, and I wanted to give a decent reply acknowledging the amount of feedback that I've gotten. So this is just for the people who were really interested in it, for you guys to, you know, have some extra whatever to chew on. So, well, that's it. There's nothing else to say. See ya.